great holiday. We had Christmas, we had New Year's, we had my birthday, and we had my wedding anniversary. And yeah,
that's right.
Every holiday that happens to me happens like right there. And then,
It's all within
been a busy week.
Weeks period.
But I hope you guys all had a good holiday season, even though you might not have as many fun events as I did. But we're good to see you guys back for Critical Conversations, episode number 16.
16, I think. Yeah, in the new year, 2021.
Yeah. It's good to have a little time off. If this is your first time with us, my name is Sam Castles. This is my co-host, as always, Jared Bessie.
Hello,
and we are a show that takes current events, political news, whatever, philosophy, old news, old topics, and try to have healthy conversations about them and be accountable to the truth and good dialogue. Avoid extremism and crazy positions that inflame. That's the idea. So,
right, which none of that has happened in the last week. So.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see why we do this. So good segue, Jared, because approximately 3 days ago we were like, what are we going to talk about? We kind of
we had some ideas from last year.
Things, right?
We could talk about Georgia. We'll still talk about Georgia, but it was like,
yes. And then this week happened.
Right.
So there was a lot happened yesterday, and specific today is Thursday. So the Georgia election, and then what are we even calling this day? I feel like Capitol Riot.
Capitol Crisis on Capitol Hill. I don't know.
Critical Conversations, Capitol Crisis. Like, that can be the name of the episode.
I think so.
The 4 C's.
But you have to write our headline in the name of exactly. Our show name in the episode title.
Exactly. So suddenly we have a lot of things to talk about. So do you want to, I don't know what the best order to go in is, but we figured we'd talk a little bit about the Georgia Senate vote, talk about the riot itself, talk a little bit about the electoral vote confirmed, which was that night, which is crazy. And I'll talk about why I think it's crazy. It
all happened in the last, 4 a.m. this morning, they certified. So that's wild.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But before I jump to all of that, yet another thing happened. It's probably 2 or 3 hours ago now, but I won't pull up an article or anything. You guys will probably have seen it by then, but President Trump finally releases a video in which it's basically a concession speech. He talks about, he condemns the violence, condemns the riot, and he says that my only goal was to have a fair election where voters are verified who vote and something like that for pursuing our democracy.
Explained. We've been, I tried all these different lawsuits to make sure it was fair and unbiased. And
but he says his only goal was to protect democracy. And then he says, now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. We must get on with the business of America. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. And which says there will be a new administration in 2 weeks.
It's fantastic and exactly what he should have given on November 7th.
Yeah.
2 months ago.
It really does feel like the latest concession speech of all time.
It is the latest concession speech of all time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've had a later one. So.
Yep.
12 days or 13 days before inauguration.
Yeah, there's been a giant tone shift from the morning of the 6th to now, because the morning of the 6th was still same old. It was stolen. Everything that he said had to start and end with it was stolen. And it seems like after the debacle of yesterday and Pence confirming the votes and they had a debate and all of that, I think at least Trump and Jared mentioned this before we went on air. Would he have behaved different without this Capitol riot? Would he still be claiming the election was stolen, or was that sort of his last stand all along? Because it certainly seems to be the case now that he's just done and he's ready to move on. He did say at the very end of his video, our journey is just beginning, and buckle up or prepare for the ride or something like.
Yes. So 2024. Let's back up and let's talk about yesterday and kind of what led us to this, and then
Yes.
we'll circle back around to Georgia and what the future holds.
Before we do that, don't forget your
Okay.
thought. I have to address the other elephant in the room. My camera is facing
Oh,
a different direction. I got a webcam for Christmas, and I won't go into details, but it's basically going to be like this for today, and then we'll see if it goes back to a different angle. But I was way too lazy to like rearrange all the monitor structures. And
hey, I'm liking the new angle. It looks fun.
It looks good. I'm very happy. Thanks to my dad for picking up his camera. Thanks, Dad. And
very nice.
Yeah, it's been fun. So
I like you can see all three panels in the background as opposed to
you always wondered what that left panel was. Oh, but it's kind of an issue because can you tell it's a little like not quite straight, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, a little
narrows
bit.
here, and then it gets wider.
Yep.
So I just
I blame Catherine for that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to ruin that, so you guys will just be looking at that the whole time we're talking. How much it drives you crazy. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we were looking back from this day before we got to it.
Yes. Talk about yesterday. So I've been working from home this week, and you texted me at like 2:30 or something, 2:15. And we're just like, hey, have you seen what's happening in DC? I just was working and I wasn't really paying attention. And you sent me a photo of people climbing over a wall. And I was like, wait, what's going on? Immediately Google it and see that there are people like in the process of breaking down the door of the Capitol building. And I was flummoxed at it. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
But it was just this wild, and I sat there in awe. I was texting like a million different people, my coworkers who were all at the office, and they were watching on the new. They were all like huddled around the TV watching, and just just wildness.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Emotions always run like really high at a time like that. So it's
right.
But I mean, what can we say except it seemed to me that it was an almost unilateral like condemnation. A lot of obviously the left was just absolutely, I don't even know what word to use, but super disappointed. And
and I think that's fair because I think something that I've been thinking about a lot in the last 24 hours was there's so many times or so many people, and myself included, that have been like, well, Trump's words are really terrible and whatever, and this is, but his policies have been really great, and I really like this, and that, and the other. And then because everyone just kind of assumed nothing would ever actually happen from like his words or his actions. But basically it was kind of incited by when they were at the White House, they had a protest. He was giving a speech and he said, let's all march down to the Capitol building. I'm coming with you. Let's go. He didn't go, of course. Which is interesting.
I think he said the words, we got to do something about it or something like that.
It was very kind of like, this is happening right now. We gotta, something's gotta happen. And so people marched down from the White House to the Capitol building, and then chaos ensued from there. So I definitely think like it's hard to just say that this was some crazy Trumpies that wasn't instigated by him. I think he had a significant role in this, and his tweets in the last 3 or 4 days have been even more inflammatory. And so it's wild. And I think there are so many even big Trump supporters in the last 24 hours that have been, I was wrong. I didn't think this was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for those on the left or like the big tech who has made decisions to either remove or flag these sorts of speeches, these sorts of, what do they call it? Just unfounded conspiracy theories, unbased stuff like that. They've been removing it all in fear that it would inspire something like this. And then you have your people on the right wing, and I think I would tend to be on the side of saying like, oh, you shouldn't do this. Like, and I still think that, but obviously they have a very compelling point in yesterday, which is,
this is going to be
what kind of speech.
Because a lot of this, I think, came out of online groups or online resentment, and could, if Facebook and Twitter and Instagram had cracked down really, really hard and let no political speech happen, would this have still happened? Probably. The internet is a huge place. Like, these things could have still happened. But it's definitely became more mainstream in the last 2 months than it ever has been before.
I mean, obviously it's probably too early to say anything like this, but I don't think this was a planned thing. I don't think these people came to Washington to seize the Capitol, but obviously it happened.
Right. It was just wild live, just watching these videos of, so like people were live streaming themselves inside the Capitol, and these crazy people that just you can whip out your phone and pull up Facebook Live or Twitch or whatever you want and just be like, I'm here, and there are people posing and doing all sorts of stupid things and sitting on Nancy Pelosi's desk and pictures of her receptionist's like mailbox, email folders, like just wild stuff.
Yeah, insane. And another huge reaction that I had was just how was it this easy? Like,
no, I think a lot of the narrative coming out of this is going to be what was DC police doing? Like, did they not think something like this could happen?
Yeah.
What was the law enforcement? Where were the safeguards? Because I didn't watch a lot of the buildup. I kind of jumped in, but it seemed like there wasn't much like clash. A lot of times in these riots or protests, there's like this big clash, and then something happens. But this was just kind of like they just kind of swarmed to the front and got in. And then eventually the National Guard was deployed, and people went home pretty quick after it got dark, which was good, because I was worried after it got dark if it could have, gotten even worse, or like other people came out that aren't necessarily involved, just who knows.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, I'm with you. It feels like a huge failure on the defense team or police or whatever group was in charge. But maybe it could be said that the priority was keeping the Congress people safe.
Yeah.
And
which they were.
They did do that.
They had their gas masks. They were prepared. But it was like this quick kind of like, we got to get out of here right now. Like it was.
Yeah.
It still seemed.
Just feels like they should also be able to keep people out of the building. Like,
right. Especially on a day like today when people were, especially people on the left, I feel like we're like, something could happen, be careful. And then, like that was the sentiment over the last couple of days, like this.
Yeah. And when you have a crowd of that many people, like, you should be planning ahead. I mean, when all of the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, the Capitol was well protected, and
it was
so
like
was the White House.
Like tons of armed guards. And it's like, why are you not doing that? And so
I mean, obviously there's a lot of theories about like, well, the cops tend to vote right wing, so they don't prepare for these kind of things, and they are not as harsh. And it's definitely fair that, like, there was a lot less confrontation with this group. So that is, I'm sure, a whole separate topic. But there will be a lot of good conversations hopefully to come out of this, or terrible conversations. Whatever.
I know. It's something I was watching ABC, their live stuff yesterday, and one of the things, I can't remember who said it, was one of the anchors, or maybe Chris Christie. It was like, I just hope that something out of this, we can unite behind it and whatever.
Yeah. And
then like 3 hours later, I was on Facebook and reading, and someone was like, it's all Antifa. Antifa's the one who did everything. It's all fake, and these weren't Trump supporters. And have you seen the image of the guy with the hammer and sickle on his hand?
Oh, hammer and sickle.
And you know what it is? It's from the Dishonored video game.
Yeah. It's like some nerd thing, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, yeah. People are ridiculous. I also am seeing like two other big responses from like really far right wing people, which is first, they didn't actually do anything, like it wasn't as bad, and all they did was like take selfies and at least on public property. And then the other response, which is like, oh, they were way more coordinated than Antifa, and like they actually got into public spaces and did what Antifa could never have done. It's like, which is it? Did you do more than Antifa or less than Antifa? You can't say both.
Yep. Oh my gosh. It's just, I really think there's not much there's not any defending it. Like I
haven't seen much defense.
It needs to be condemned, which I think is the saddest thing also, I think, besides Trump inciting it, was he did nothing to help really for hours.
It's too little, too late.
Yeah, people were calling him. I know, like, there are people on like all the congressmen and senators are like, we're trying to call him, we're trying to get a hold of the president. No, he's not answering anyone's calls. Like, what is he doing? Probably just sitting back smiling. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure it was a slow realization that, like, oh, this is really bad. This is not going to end well for anyone.
Yeah, I don't know what is in his mind. I think he just want to go out with a bang, literally. Like, he just, I don't know. And I think so he sent out a tweet saying everyone to be safe, or like,
right, it was like a no violence, but it wasn't like a get out, right?
But it wasn't like they're literally in the Capitol right now, you're not going to tell them to get out. And then he released a minute-long statement that was like 75% we've been the election's fake, and 25% you should leave. I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah, it was bad. Today's message was a million times better.
Yes, because last night's message also, which was the one that caused Facebook to ban him like permanently or indefinitely, and Twitter to suspend his account for 24 hours and take down three posts, was he said something like, never forget this day, this is a great day for patriotism, or something like very not condemning, very and that was taken down pretty quick. And but so I had all these things in my head, but then today's concession was very much on par, I feel like, for what I thought Trump would do originally when the election ended.
What you hoped anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. It's it seems like a huge shift has happened, and
I think
he's ready to call it a day. And then part of it is probably because there's a lot of talk about impeachment, and by the time this episode is published, there's probably going to be a lot more knowledge about, will the impeachment go forward, or will they claim Article 25 or 25th Amendment?
Right, which, for those who don't know, the 25th Amendment is you can declare, if the president's administration, including the vice president and his cabinet, to say that he's unfit for presidency, the vice president immediately becomes president. In case someone suffered a stroke, or like couldn't function, or was in a coma, or like whatever various thing happened. So I think the statement today was very much, I don't want that, because I think I don't know how the 25th Amendment works for re-election. If you get declared unfit, if you can be declared fit again, I don't know how it works.
I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, so
no,
moot point. But impeachment very well could happen.
Impeachment could happen. And I think I don't know if Trump expected as many senators to like flip on him, because there were 15, 16 or something that were originally going to vote for like looking into fraud allegations, and it only ended up being like 6 or 7 last night.
I think so.
So that was a pretty big swing, although the Congress was less. There's still like 100 that disapproved. But anyway, I don't know if he was expecting the backlash as much as he got. So
very interesting. I was kind of shocked that they went and had the electoral verification vote that night, because if I were them, I would be worried about, well, what if one of these lunatics left some, I don't know, some bad powder or substance, or...
Well, they didn't go back into the Capitol building.
Oh, they didn't?
They all convened wherever they were taken. I don't think anyone knows but they were all taken to a secure location, and they all got together in the secure location to continue to vote.
I did not know that.
8 p.m. last night. Yeah, so they couldn't.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
They couldn't clear the Capitol in time. They found like 3 other. The FBI or the Secret Service or whoever found like 3 other what could have been potential bombs left that were cleared out this morning or in the middle of the night. I don't know. So yeah, they were in a whole different space to actually do the vote.
Yeah, because I know they held the vote at like 4 a.m., but I didn't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of votes because they're starting all night long, but
right.
It finished around 4 a.m.
Wow. Crazy.
Yep, but
what a day.
It sounds like Joe Biden actually will 100% now be our president. Come January 20th, which I was like 99% sure before, but
right. Yeah. So that's that, and then the other big news is obviously Georgia. The 2 Senate seats, like we've been referring to, both went to the Democrat candidates, which means that the Senate is officially at 50-50, and in the case of a 50-50 tie, the vice president will break votes, who will obviously be Kamala Harris, which she's a very Democrat senator, has been voting with the party for since she was in the Senate. And yeah, that is big news. There's going to be a lot of ramifications of that. Obviously, the Senate, the House, and the executive are all Democrat controlled, even though the Senate is, a close one.
And the House is pretty close now too.
True. They're both close. Yeah,
it's not far off anymore. But it's just really interesting because we've never had in America. We've never had a 50-50 split, which is kind of wild. It's not. I don't think it'll make that big a difference because I was just looking up who becomes the Senate Majority Leader, because usually it's the majority. But if there's no majority, it'll probably just be the vice president's party, since she splits the tie. It will be Chuck Schumer, because he was the minority leader. So that's interesting. So it's basically Democrat run, but 50-50 is not 51-49. So
yeah, absolutely. There are a couple senators that voted with Trump about 50% of the time on various issues. So obviously, like Joe Manchin is the big one that at least stands out to me as one who has not been afraid to side with the Republicans in huge pivotal votes. I think his county is his district is very Trump leaning and all of that, or his state, I guess, and doesn't really have a district. But basically he's no sure shoe-in for any sort of giant votes. But maybe this is wildly optimistic, but maybe, just maybe, with a tighter House and a tighter Senate and Trump no longer being in office, we might see a little bit less hyper-partisanship.
Maybe. I hope, hopefully there are things that can happen that are compromises and good actual governing instead of just stonewalling or posturing sake for your constituent. Like there's been, with all this fraud stuff, that's like, I feel like all that it has been is just people, senators and congressmen posturing for their base instead of actually doing their jobs. So hopefully that gets back to that. I would very much like that if that was the case.
So, we'll see. High hopes.
Yep.
But yeah, and I don't know, we probably don't have time to get into it all today, but it would be, I'm looking forward to talking about our predictions on what the Democrats will do, having all 3 controls. Like we've obviously seen a lot of disunity in the GOP the last couple of days, but prior to, I don't know, the last 4 months, I would have said it was the Democrat Party who was more split between like the further left progressive wing and the more like traditional moderate Democrats. So obviously that will be a renewed tension.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a part of it, especially as we get into as whenever with the president party, I think you see more splits in that. Like we're going to have these issues that are brought up that may pass in the Senate, but also are going to be split because the far lefties want something even stronger than the thing that's passed. So there might be some issues with that, like we saw with the Republicans this year. But yeah, I think the GOP is going to really have to look at itself over the next 4 years, because I think this is a turning point.
Yeah.
How do we change? How much Trumpism stays in our politics and our policies? What will happen in 2024? Who will be nominated? So it's going to be a pretty interesting.
Absolutely. And then they have House elections every 2 years.
Every 2 years, yeah. So there'll be a bunch more people up in at midterms.
Yeah, so halfway through.
And there'll be some senators that I'm sure will be up for re-election too. Yeah. So because that's every 6. So there will be people that both of the houses could flip. Depends on how much Biden is liked over the next 2 years.
Sure, and just what happens, like economy-wise, pandemic-wise, like all.
Usually midterms will flip, but I could also see because people hated 2020 so much, over the next year and a half, if everything just gets better, like vaccine gets rolled out, everyone gets better, the economy comes back, jobs are brought back, and it may not just be Biden, but he's president and he gets the lion's share of that, economic kind of put on him. And so who knows? We could see the approval rating doing well, and the Democrats making control for all 4 years. It's just going to depend on what happens the next couple of years. So
a lot to consider for sure.
Yeah, I think it will be more boring politically, probably. Trump has made every little thing so exciting because the media and everyone is obsessed with everything he says, and so it will probably be less so. But we'll see.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, especially I think after COVID dies down a little bit. I'd probably still be a bit involved. I mean, another episode I'd like to do is maybe for next week is looking at Joe Biden's week 1 promises and just seeing what does he follow through on, because everyone who runs a campaign, day 1, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Right. There's all those executive orders that get overturned day 1. All of the different, there's a bunch of stuff that usually happens right at the beginning, or the first 100 days, first 10 days, there's a plan for each of those.
Right. So usually there's some big promises, and then delivery is always kind of a toss-up. So it'd be interesting to talk about what are we going to expect to see in the next 2 weeks? What are those day 1 promises? What are the executive orders? What's getting tossed out? Are we rejoining Paris Accords? Big things that have been promised. When will those get done?
Yeah. I think probably we'll do that next week, because by the time that episode comes out, he'll have been inaugurated. So that will be good to do. Yeah, just to look at what the next 4 years we're going to look like after these last ones. So
yeah, absolutely.
Be super interesting. Entering a new era.
Yes. Feels like it's finally here. I hope we're out of surprises.
I really do too. This week has had enough.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. 2020 just had that last whisper from the grave, goodbye.
Yeah.
Just crazy events.
And I do think it's this is to circle back a little bit, because we already mentioned Georgia, but I just find it interesting that both Democrats ended up winning, because I really thought that one of them, especially not Purdue, right? No, who's the guy that
there's Warnock and Ossoff won, and then Purdue and Loeffler were
Purdue's the one that could have won, right? That looked like
Purdue had a better shot than Loeffler.
Right. I really thought he was going to do it. But I think the rhetoric that came from Trump right after the election really put a damper on people's interest in voting in Georgia. And the Democrats outspent so much in the ads, and people turned out, and it's just really interesting.
I think a big factor was probably a lot of disenfranchised Republican voters who have they turned out big for Trump, And now, ever since then, they think it's stolen, and Trump has been saying it's stolen. And
yeah, if you think the election's stolen and nothing you'd say vote matters, why go out and vote? Like, that's the logic there.
Right, and I think a lot of these people turned out to vote who might not, and then they vote Trump, and they're like, "Oh, I'll also vote for the red senator and not the blue senator," and like that's all the thought that went into it. So now Trump's not there to drive out the vote the way he was. I mean, that's obviously true of the left, because obviously, and the Democrats would have a bigger incentive to get Trump out, and the same thing. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of Republicans who are just like, forget this, we lost Trump. And just less enthusiastic about voting.
Well, I think that's a lot. I mean, I think that's the case in general with this past election, is that it was less Joe Biden and more anti-Trump, and very pro-Trump, and not even just conservative policies. It was just like Trump versus not Trump, and
huge gain for the Democrats. I mean, Georgia, was very red really not that long ago, and to see it kind of blue sweep is pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Did you hear that? There was a Georgia congressman who switched from Democrat to Republican like this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I forget his name. Let me look it up really quick.
I've just been looking at like all the different senators and congressmen, all their identities for a project for work. So that's interesting.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, Georgia State Rep Vernon Jones announces he's joining the Republican Party.
Interesting.
But apparently he was campaigning for Trump last year, so this is not like that shocking.
Okay, and he's a state rep, right? So
is he a state rep?
Yeah, because he's not like.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's interesting. That is interesting.
I don't know. I just thought it was weird for Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, Georgia House of Representatives.
Okay, yeah. Still very interesting.
Wild. But yeah, Georgia, tends to be pretty Republican. So
yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Well, anything else to say about this crazy week?
Nah, I mean, what else is there? No, there's plenty to talk about. I think we'll kind of continue a little bit of less about the Capitol riot and more about moving forward. We'll have a bit more political talk and then see what happens. I'm sure it'll be a busy next couple of weeks. So
yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So yeah,
I'll probably be focused on politics for a few weeks and then figure it out from there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen and move on. Finally move on.
For sure. All right. Well, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yeah, I have probably the most basic recommendation on the show of all time. I'll go ahead and share my screen just because we got to get that sweet
visualization. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Boom. Taylor Swift.
Wait. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Oh, it works now?
Yep.
Has released 2 albums.
For a total of 34 songs.
So many songs. So Folklore came out June. And it's a great album. It's very different for Taylor Swift. It's been around for 6 months, so you guys probably know about it. But if you have not listened to it, it's great. It's very peaceful, very nice. There is a non-explicit version for the cautious listeners. And then she released a second sort of continuation surprise album.
Sister album.
When did she announce that? It was like a surprise.
Both of them were the day of. They were like, surprise tonight, coming out.
Yeah.
Like this crazy, which she's known for having, huge elaborate, teases for months and then
releasing single after single, each
7
one
singles.
Right. Yep. So definitely a change of direction for her. You can tell that this was like a big quarantine project. They're very like folksy. I wonder if it says. Nah. Okay. But basically it's a lot more like folk indie style music, for the easy definition, I guess. But basically, how do I get Zoom back? I'm struggling. Where's my little
stop sharing?
Oh, it's up here. It's hiding from me. Yeah, so really new sound and for her, and I think she did that first album and loved writing it so much that she basically said, I just couldn't stop writing music, and I have a whole nother album, and here it is.
Yeah.
And they've both been really good. I know Jared and I are both huge fans of it. I think Taylor Swift was my number 2 artist this year on Spotify Rap.
Nice.
It's like a weird top 3. It's like Blink-182's Taylor Swift and Post Malone. Like
it's probably Post Malone.
a very eclectic 3. Not eclectic. They're all very popular, but it's like a strange mix, I guess.
In different. They're popular for different people.
Yeah, exactly. So I recommend those 2 albums, especially the one that just came out.
Yes, I really like Evermore a lot. So
right before we went live, I was telling Jared I was going to recommend this, and we looked, and 2 more songs came out just today on the deluxe version that we have not even heard. So
if those songs suck, don't play mine.
Exactly. Exactly. But we'll hopefully go listen to them right after this.
Yes. Perfect. All right. Should I wrap us up?
Wrap us up.
All right. Well, this has been Critical Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just happy to talk and be back in a new year. I think we're going to have some good discussions, and hopefully I'll have some more guests on this year. And it's going to be really great. So if you want to be on the show, you know us, reach out. That would be awesome. But yeah, we are on Facebook. You can follow us there for all our updates and episodes. We are also on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts and iTunes and Spotify and Pocket Casts and everything else. And on YouTube, and follow us, all the things. So
like and subscribe.
Hit that bell. You really want to be notified. Sorry, I hate us too. But yeah, next week probably talk about Joe Biden stuff. So
yes, join us for that. It'll be interesting. It's gonna be interesting for sure. All right.
Thank you guys. See y'all next week.